Looks like we're live, so we're going to get started. Hi, everybody. My name's Darren Henry, and I'm joined by Dan Kane. We both work at Onshape in the Onshape team at PTC, and we're really excited that you're here today. It looks like we have a huge attendance, so we appreciate you making time for us. This webinar or screencast is entitled Intro to Onshape for Professionals, and it's meant for people who are just getting used to looking at cloud-native CAD. We're going to do an introduction of what the benefits are for cloud-native CAD and how Onshape is delivering some unique capabilities in the market. So let's get started. If you have any comments or questions, just use the comments section of the interface, and at the end of the session, we'll actually answer some questions and respond to people's comments. We're actually in a really exciting time for manufacturers. If you're not aware, there's several major CAD vendors, and they're all spending billions of dollars investing in what we call cloud applications. It's really an exciting time right now in the marketplace. A lot of investment. People are shifting away from what we'll say desktop install-based CAD to cloud-native CAD. And they're doing this for good reason. If you're not familiar with the benefits, the first one is that cloud-native CAD actually enables new agile workflows that actually accelerate the design process. We'll talk about some of those today. It simplifies data management. Data management's a topic that causes a lot of headaches with teams. It's something that people really don't look forward to. But in the cloud environment, data management can be extremely seamless and easy to deploy, easy to manage. It improves access, collaboration, and visibility across your team, to your suppliers, to your customers. It really helps make the design process interactive. And of course, it provides greater security, reliability, and control. You're not sending around copies of files with cloud-native CAD. You're actually pointing people to one source of the CAD models and the drawings that are associated with those. And you can control access at any time. You can invite somebody, much like a Google Doc, invite somebody to collaborate. And then if you choose that they're no longer on the team, you can remove them from the distribution list. You can actually control the granular permissions people have, something you just can't do when you email a CAD file around or share with a Dropbox where they copy it locally. But one of the most exciting aspects of cloud-native CAD is the potential of AI. If you imagine, think about all the AI applications you're using and ask yourself which ones you're actually installing to your desktop. Most of them you're accessing through the cloud. And if you want to unleash the power of AI with CAD data, you're either going to have to upload your CAD data to these AI engines and these agents, or you're just going to have to give them access. And with cloud native capabilities, it's centralized. You have those ability to actually assign permissions and use AI with the cloud native data as you see fit. And I think it's an incredible opportunity for CAD vendors. It's something that's really driving the value of cloud native CAD. And I think it's something you're going to see a lot more of in the future. There's different approaches to cloud CAD architectures that you should know about. On the right, we have sort of the traditional desktop, which is file-based, locally installed CAD. That's the one that people are used to having. It's been around for decades. It's also one that's being divested in, meaning that people aren't putting the funds into developing those applications as much as they used to. Over to the left, you see we have a hybrid cloud. A lot of times you'll see that different vendors have an approach where you install, say, a thin client. You're still doing the compute locally, but you're storing data in the cloud. This will help with collaboration, but you still have the headache of managing different CAD versions, and you're still dependent on the interoperability with your own personal hardware. And then all the way to the left is where we live in the Onshape world. It's cloud native, where the application as well as the data resides in the cloud. It's no longer file-based. This is a database-driven application. If you're not familiar with this terminology, think about a Google Doc. You don't worry about the file extensions with the Google Doc. You just go to your drive and access that data. Behind the scenes, it's using a database to manage your whether it's a document, a slide show or a spreadsheet file. It's using a database to manage that. You're not so worried about file extensions. What you're worried about is the accessibility of the data, and you can access it from any device anywhere. This is what cloud native, database driven CAD is all about. And it's something where Onshape is excelling. At the bottom chart, this is something I really want people to take away from this webinar, is that the investment is drastically being increased for the cloud native and the hybrid cloud architectures, and it's being reduced drastically for the traditional desktop CAD applications. I think this is extremely important because if you're happy with your traditional installed base system, what I think you're going to find is those maintenance dollars that you pay each year for an update is actually going to yield less and less value for you. And if you question what I'm talking about, take a look at this. Take a look at this chart here. This is, SolidWorks is a very popular desktop installed CAD system. And if you go back just a few years to 2019, if you look at the release of what you'd see as far as features, you have 40 plus significant enhancements. If you fast forward to 2026, the latest release, you'll see that that list has really drastically changed to 6. This is all publicly available data. You can go to what's new and type in SolidWorks 2019, SolidWorks 2018, and compare it to the latest releases. It just visually shows you that the amount of R&D that's actually being invested into these installed desktop products has been drastically reduced. Even the functionality, I think, is not as significant as it once was, those 6 compared to the 40. So it's something for you to consider. A lot of people are paying their maintenance dollars, and the truth is CAD vendors are taking that and investing in the future, which is the cloud architectures. I just wanted to show you that one of the benefits of a cloud native architecture is the agile development process that it also changes. And this is Onshape's sort of development release cycle. We release 17 updates every year. So every 3 weeks, there's a new update. And if you look at the bullet points, we believe it's significant. Each release is significant. There's usually a half dozen really customer-driven enhancements. So we feel that the cloud native architecture allows us to evolve a CAD product much faster than the old traditional monolithic send out a large update once a year. Something for you to consider. Onshape is the absolute leader in cloud native CAD. That's why I think a lot of people are here checking it out. You might have heard about it. You might have seen it. For good reason. It runs on any device. It requires 0 IT. You don't need a CAD administrator. You just log in and go. It eliminates crashes and never loses data. The platform we develop on is the exact platform we deploy on. It's run on AWS data centers. And what's really nice is we don't have to worry about operating systems. We don't have to worry about conflicts with cybersecurity software, virus protection. We don't have to worry about conflicts with other input devices. We're running in the cloud on the exact same systems that we developed on. So we're really removing all the variables that cause instability. We enable real-time collaboration. Multiple people can work on the same model at the same time. Dan's going to show you that. And what's important is we track all activity. So not only do we remove the hardware burden of crashes, but if you do make a human error, you can recover at any point throughout the history of the entire CAD model. And then also I talked about data management. It's built in. It's a different approach, very similar to software development, where we have like a Git-like style. You can do things like branching and merging. You can do a version. It's tracking all micro versions. So Dan will show you that as well. Very exciting stuff. It's something for you to consider. The bottom ones have to do with the fact that we're not file-based, that we actually use this database-driven data format. This is what it looks like. We'll take a closer look, but you can see the data management's built on the left, and I talked about branching and merging. You get a visual indicator. It might look a little alien to you now, but it's a very visual indicator that shows everybody what the current state of the model or the project is in. The history tree is in the center, and obviously a big graphic area. This is all running in a browser, Google Chrome. The one thing I want you to take from this slide is if you look at the right, it's not only the traditional CAD with parts, assemblies, and drawings. We have the sheet metal, the frames, PC board, simulation, rendering, and CAM, all running in a browser, zero software installed. It's really quite amazing. The market is responding very well. This is just a list of the people who have made the move to Onshape. It's everything here from brands you love, like Trek Bicycle, if you're a bicycle enthusiast, Canyon as well, if you like skiing, K2, Hasbro's there with toys, but also very complex engineering. Garrett is the leader in turbochargers, and they manufacture those, so very complex geometry. Boom Supersonic is building supersonic jets. Aura Aero is also another company that's building, at the bottom, is building carbon neutral planes that are actually flying. And then we have Miso Robotics, advanced robotics. The thing you want to take away from here is that Onshape is making a dent in every industry. People are excited about the new workflows that it unlocks. So we're doing well, extremely well, with companies who are worried about time to market and innovation. We're also doing extremely well in the educational realm. We have about 5.2 million all-time EDU signups. Just last year alone, 1.2 million. We are taught in 50 of the 50 top engineering schools. Here's some logos of different universities that are now teaching Onshape as part of the engineering course curriculum. So we're really excited about the traction we're seeing in the education space. Imagine you're a teacher teaching Onshape. The beauty is it runs on any device, anywhere. You just your students log in, they learn the parametric flows that people are used to, and it has this really nice cloud-based capabilities where people can collaborate and work alongside a professor or alongside teams. So it's working very well in the education space. There's a lot of other things that I want you to look at when Dan does the demonstration. We can build parts together, not necessarily in separate files. A lot of times external references get very complex with file-based CAD. Our assemblies, we use a different approach where it's much easier to build assemblies with higher level mates. You do it in fewer steps and it's much more consistent. We'll probably not cover in the intro webinar our feature script, but if the CAD is missing a piece of functionality, we expose the tools so you can build it yourself and deploy it to your entire team. I mentioned new functionality is added every 3 weeks, but also one of the things that distinguishes us is if you do find an issue, it's easy to track it and report those issues, and you'll get notifications when we address those issues. Every 3 weeks, we're putting out new functionality, and we're notifying the people who have reported issues that we fix those issues. It's really a nice modern workflow, and it's a nice way of working with your CAD vendor. Okay, I've talked enough. Let me stop sharing, and we're going to turn it over to Dan Kane, and he'll give you a look.
Great. Thank you, Darren. Let me go ahead and share my screen. We should now be seeing the Onshape sign-in page. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Seems like we have an audience from all around the world. I'm really excited to bring you through a quick tour of Onshape. As Darren showed, right, there's really complex customers doing a lot of complex things in Onshape. It's a deep and wide tool, but I just want to give an introduction for folks who might be new, right? Understand how you can get started building your parts, assemblies, and drawings in Onshape. So that'll be the focus today. If there are any questions, feel free to add them in the chat and we'll try to get to them if the time allows. But the first thing to notice as we're giving a tour of Onshape is the fact that I'm fully in a web browser, right? I have opened Google Chrome here, Safari, Firefox, really whichever one you prefer. You're not going to need to download or install any sort of application or program to utilize Onshape, right? I can come to the sign-in page, enter my credentials, and access my full product design environment, right? We're going to have all of our data stored centrally for all of our company and collaborators to access. And I can utilize things like the web browser to, say, open up multiple designs in parallel. Right here, I'm opening up 3 top-level assemblies, all concurrently in parallel. And we're going to take a look at just the power that comes with being backed on AWS, being in this cloud-native environment, right? I have this assembly here that's just shy of 1,000 components that you could see snapped open very quickly. And I can do things like animate the entire motion of this assembly or section it while it's animating without worrying about, my fans spinning up, local processing running into limitations. We're going to utilize the scalable compute and power that comes with being hosted on Amazon Web Services and do this from any device, right? I operate on a MacBook Pro. A lot of the Onshape team works on MacBooks. You don't think of a CAD engineering company as being MacBook centric. We are, because we're browser based, we're operating system agnostic, and you can run Onshape really from any device at any time. So highly powerful with things like large assemblies. Want to just give a quick tour, right? Detailed drawings, of course, is something that is always going to be a part of the manufacturing stream. We have a fully equipped professional CAD drawing package, full GD&T, inspection items, bill of materials, ECO, right? Rev tables, all going to be supported within this drawing package. Quick tour as well for weldment and sheet metal design. This is a multi-part design environment that Darren alluded to, where I have my full cut list that's going to be a part of this design environment, right? I can cross highlight, get my beam profiles, and understand what my cut list is going to look like, as well as we're designing sheet metal and frames actually in the same part studio here. So I can access my flat pattern right alongside my actual bent view. A lot of capabilities, really, again, deep and wide tool. Not going to get to everything, but just want to give a quick tour of all the types of things that you're going to see. Before we move on to working on a part, just want to give a quick tour of what we call an Onshape document. This is really kind of unique to Onshape. I think really important for folks that are new to Onshape to quickly understand. All data in Onshape is stored within a document, right? So you can have separate documents, but you can also have multiple pieces of data within a single Onshape document. Think of this like a container to store parts, assemblies, drawings, but also other types of data, right? Images that might relate to your design, or PDFs and schematics that are going to be adjacent and provide background information. This is a very flexible type of container. Any type of data can be stored within here, but just note that this is going to be something that you're going to want to learn about as you start working within the Onshape environment. So with that, let's jump into a quick modeling exercise. So we have this work holding clamp that we're going to complete the design today and sort of finalize this component. I can see I'm actually missing my swing arm. So let me jump from my clamp tab in my document to a part studio environment. This is going to be where we're going to do the design work. We're going to use some power tips here. So Shift S is going to start a sketch, and then I can go ahead and select a plane. N is going to drop me normal. I'm going to hit the P key to go ahead and hide my planes, give me a nice, clean working environment. As you're building up your sketches in Onshape, I hope you'll find that a lot of this should feel familiar coming from other systems, right? As I add, drop in dimensions and this becomes fully defined, my sketch turns from blue to black, right? I can go ahead and enter fractions like 3/4 to go ahead and give me my dimension there in sort of a functional way. I can also do things like apply constraints, of course, right? This particular circle here, I'm going to drop an equal command, again, use a keyboard shortcut to go ahead and make that equal to my other circle here. Using this shortcut toolbar is keyboard shortcut S. This is one thing I highly recommend. S key shortcut bar is going to be really powerful. You can customize what that toolbar looks like. We go ahead and snap this to a tangent, right? Snap this other one to a tangent as well. And then if I need to apply additional ones, we of course have a full constraint library. Again, keyboard shortcut T. I can just go ahead and select these entities to round those out. Final thing on this particular sketch is dimension. Also another keyboard shortcut D here is going to allow us to do that, to select the outer edges of this circle. And we can go ahead and make this 2.25 inches. And now we have a fully constrained sketch that is going to serve as the base of our swing arm design. Jumping straight from here into an extrude is going to automatically grab the enclosed sections of that sketch. This is actually exactly what I was looking for this feature. But just quickly, while we're in the extrude dialog, notice that this is going to be really deep You can do surface extrudes, thin extrudes, all within the same dialog here. We're not going to have separate commands. So you may look at the toolbar and be looking for a tool. A lot of times it's actually enclosed in a logical way within the sort of native commands there. So extrude has a lot of depth to it. We'll make that 3/4 of an inch and go ahead and move on. So our next sketch, we're going to need to define the side profile. So I'm going to right click this right plane, create a new sketch. Again, N key slaps me normal. I'm going to drop a line in here and use actually the construction command. This is another keyboard shortcut. Q allows me to drop in a construction line. Q again gets me out of that. And then I can go ahead and just define a quick angle that is going to be an extrude cut. Again, snap to things like vertical and horizontal. D drives me to my dimension. So I'll just make this 0.5. And then we're going to use the coincident command to go ahead and snap that onto that line. One more dimension of 20 degrees. And now we have this side profile defined. Again, jump right into my extrude command. And another area where not just surface and thin, but also my extrude cut is all within this extrude command. Use this symmetric through all to make sure this is fully parametric. And I have quickly made my cut and my design is starting to take shape. So hopefully, right, sketching, extrudes, fundamental parametric CAD that's going to build up a feature tree here on the left side. This should feel familiar coming from other systems. We have not reinvented the wheel in terms of just fundamentals of modeling in Onshape. Where this starts to get interesting, where this starts to get a bit different than other systems is the way that we bring other folks into the design process. Instead of saving a CAD file and uploading it to an FTP site or sending an email, I can simply share someone into the data where it lives on the cloud, right? I can find my coworker, maybe an entire team of folks, and choose their exact level of permissions within this document. View only or edit, whether or not they can do things like export or further share. Darren talked about security, right? You have granular permissions in the way that you share with other folks. We also have link sharing. In fact, I'll put this link in the chat later where anyone, even if they don't have an Onshape account, can come in and view the data, right? Think about supply chain, think about folks within your organization who might need access. Onshape is the most accessible CAD system out there due to its browser-based cloud-native technology. But when I go ahead and share with someone else, let me just quickly go split screen, right? They'll receive an email or even a notification on their phone. They've been shared into a document. They can go ahead and open that document and quickly be in the same data with me simultaneously. This is not separate copies of the same file. You can see these social cues let you know who is in your design with you, and you can even interact, right? If you double click there, you can enter follow mode and all of a sudden lock the views so you can see what someone else is looking at, what they're selecting. And what's going to really be powerful here is that if on the right side, I choose to maybe add a fillet command here to add some further definition, I can see a new feature is being created over here on the left. And when I confirm that, it updates in real time for all users across the board, right? This is real-time collaboration where multiple users can be viewing and editing data. And because of this database architecture, no one's going to be left behind. You don't have to check in, check out, or wait for anyone to go ahead and do their work. Now, the reason this works and the way that we're going to control this is the way that Onshape tracks changes. You notice no one ever hits save here. In fact, there is no save button in Onshape. This versions and history tree here in the top left, let me just do a quick browser zoom, is going to track every change ever made to this design, right? I can see who made what change and at what time, all the way back to when the design was originally created. You have a full product design history embedded within here. Any previous point in time can be viewed by clicking in, and you can even restore and undo back to a previous point, right? You have unlimited undo as well as redo capabilities because even that restore is a line item in here. You are never worried about losing data in Onshape, whether making a mistake, crashing, anything like that. All data is automatically tracked and unlimited undo capabilities. But we also have some interesting ways to point out key points in my design process, right? If I create a version here, I'm now creating a stake in the sand moment that is going to be forever preserved, uneditable, undeletable within my design history as a key point. And what I can do is off of a version, I can actually create what's called a branch in Onshape, right? This is a pretty unique concept to hardware design, but very familiar to anyone who has experience with software and sort of a GitHub type approach. I can create a branch where I can explore my design ideas without affecting what other people are seeing in the main workspace. This is a really powerful tool for agile product design to allow the team to work together in a cohesive way, right? So I'm going to make this a DFM type of branch here where I'm going to do some design for manufacturing edits. I'm going to add a 5-degree draft to these outsides. I'm going to go ahead and drop in a 200ths fillet around this top edge. Let's drop in a chamfer as well. Again, 200ths on these whole perimeters. And I can start to really make these changes. But again, this is unique to this branch. So if I go back, and I will in just 1 second, you'll see that has not propagated to main. But I want to point out the communication capabilities in here as well. Because as I go in and make those changes, we can add comments back and forth where I can say, hey, Mike, check out my changes. And I can even assign that as a task and tag geometry. I can say, hey, we made some changes to this edge. I want to provide all the relevant context, even markup, and say, hey, we added this chamfer, we added this fillet, and then we added some draft, and be able to contextualize the changes that I made. We talk to a lot of companies when they talk about design reviews, they think about PowerPoints and screenshots and setting up, a whole team meeting where we go in and we review it. In Onshape, this becomes a part of the tool, right? Design reviews, design feedback, and embedded in this unified environment and tracked right alongside your actual geometry. So let's go back then to my original user who is over in this main branch. You can see the changes made in that DFM branch do not propagate, right? We do not have that draft, that chamfer, that fillet. We'll talk in just a second about how to incorporate that. But the beauty is you don't have to stop designing when someone else is working, right? In the main branch, Mike here can continue to just plot along with the design. We're going to add a slot command right within, whoops, that was an offset. Let's drop a slot right in here. We'll make that 0.2. And I'll just clean up this other one, right? And we can keep moving. I can use this final button here to actually see how that slot is going to roll through the feature tree. Give you a nice quick preview before you go ahead and break anything. And then let's also go ahead and rename this part, right? This is our swing arm. We can go ahead and assign a material. This is maybe stainless steel, right? We want to make sure we're following good engineering practice. And let's edit the appearance as well. Let's make this orange here to really pop. So now I've made these changes in this branch, and maybe I'm curious, what's Mandy doing over there? Let me pop into this DFM branch. I can see her changes, see this comment as well, the screenshot. Even this tag is going to zoom, pan, rotate me to that exact same view. And then if I want to understand what's different between these branches, instead of just bouncing back and forth, I can go in, right click, and hit compare. And this is going to give me a visual and feature-based comparison between my two branches, right? I can see that the sketch has changed, that we now have 3 additional features in this branch that don't exist in the main environment. I can do a visual compare by sliding this back and forth. And it really, some of these are obvious, but maybe I missed the draft. Maybe I missed that chamfer, right? It becomes very, very clear in that visual comparison. And then what's going to really be unique to Onshape is this ability to actually go ahead and merge these changes back in. We talked about file-based versus database-driven. You can't just take 2 CAD files and smash them together. But here in this database, we can track the changes that occur in both environments and actually stack them, merge this together so that I get all of the changes. I get the visual change, the material, as well as the draft and the chamfer, right? Maybe some changes affected each other. I see this chamfer actually miss some edges now that this slot command is in here. Well, that just becomes a quick fix, The beauty of this merge, and like anything in Onshape, is that it is just another line item in my history. I can see exactly where that merge happened. If I want to come back before then, I can do that as well. But now we've collaborated. We've both had two people in here making their design changes. I can see that my draft actually looks pretty good. Let me just go ahead and do a check on 5 degrees based on this mold split direction. And I can see my outer edges meet my criteria. Maybe I need to make some changes on the inside, but just a quick highlight of that mold analysis, right? All these DFM capabilities built right in. But let's go ahead and now make a drawing of this component, because of course, at some point, we're going to need to send this to manufacturing. So if I right click, create a drawing, Onshape is all the built-in ANSI, ISO, JIS standards. I can automatically create a 4-view drawing that's going to adjust to the dimensions of my actual design here, optimize a quick 4-view drawing. And this is going to be sort of that, again, that source of truth, right? I can go ahead and make this shaded, drop in a dimension or two, again, use keyboard shortcuts. Maybe I want to capture this bottom dimension, this diameter right here, a radius, right? We're going to be able to do all the definition that we need in that environment. So parts, drawings, let's talk about assemblies. Right, so this is where I started. Was my clamp assembly is missing some swing arm. Now we have that defined in a part studio. Let me just go and insert now that swing arm that was missing. Right, I can just go ahead, click, drop that in, and then let's take a second to talk about mates. Darren mentioned this, but mating in Onshape is an area you're going to find is different than other systems. Right? We did not take sort of a low-level approach. We wanted to rethink this and really provide a high-level mating structure that reduces time, that reduces complexity, and reduces the need to debug because of this high-level approach. So I can see that this actually already has some degrees of freedom, both rotational and linear. So when I define my swing arm, I only need this to just clamp right onto the top. I want 0 degrees of freedom. The reason we're going to be able to do this in one mate, and really any definition should be done with one mate, is because of what you see here in the center of this hole, this mate connector. This is essentially a coordinate system that if I line up with another coordinate system, allows me to fully define these degrees of freedom. Right? I now have these aligned, and I now say, well, what is the degrees of freedom? Fastened means none, right? This does not move relative to each other. But I can add or remove them just by choosing different types of mates. Revolute means that this is going to be able to rotate, right? Slider means this is going to be able to go up and down. Or maybe I want both of those and I add a cylindrical mate, right? It's all about just thinking, what is the actual physical mechanism between these two parts, and what do I need to add? So in this case, I want a fastened mate. Now I can see this goes well and is all good. Another example here is maybe like this O-ring, right? I'm just going to do a quick, sorry, one second. I'm going to do a quick copy paste, drop that in there. And now O-rings, I think in a traditional system can be kind of tricky, but again, mate connector, and I'm done. Real quick, real easy. Of course, this whole time, my bill of materials is going to update with me. I dropped in that second O-ring, and I have that as well. I see my other parts have part numbers. Let me actually apply one to the swing arm, generate missing part numbers. Onshape is also a full-baked PDM system with part numbering and release management. So we've designed a part, we've made a drawing, we've added that to finalize our assembly. Let me add one more version here just to track that. Assemb complete, and we have that part done. So let's jump over back to the main screen here and find the sort of higher level assembly that we want to drop that in. Onshape, being a database, has an extremely powerful search tool, right? I can search specifically for types of components, search by category or name, description, revision state, right? Again, what you think of as a full-blown PDM system, there's no way to show Onshape without showing the PDM because it is just fully built in. So I go over to this casting and fixture assembly. Let me go ahead and insert from another document here. This is where the document breakdown becomes a little bit interesting, right? We've now moved to a different Onshape document. So when I insert this clamp, I'm going to need to navigate to that document, grab the assembly, and go ahead and drop it in. Just a quick breakdown there. When I now want to mate this, let me go ahead and grab a fastened again. I'll grab this base and the top of this hole real quick, slide that in. I now have that fully defined here. And the beauty here is I can use some intelligence in Onshape to actually drop it. I think I need like 7 more. Let me go ahead and use the replicate command to just replicate that instance and matching edges in this face, and boom, I have all of that. Oh, whoops, I just grabbed that part. Let me actually go back. This is fully parametric, right? So I can go instead, grab that clamp assembly, and I now have all my clamp assemblies dropped in. Again, bill of materials is going to update, structured, flattened, whatever you need. One final thing here, just to round out the release management section. So generally, right, in PDM, you're going to have formal release management workflows. Almost always starts from a drawing level. So let me just grab this drawing and choose to release it. No separate systems, no separate servers, anything like that. Right click, release. Default release workflows built in. Our enterprise package has customizable workflows as well. And this is going to automatically grab the part as well and give me warnings when it violates my company protocols. Pending update. Shoot, let me go back. Let me update from any changes that happen to that component. Again, right click, release, and we can go ahead and actually release this. We need to have part numbers for everything. Right, this is going to be Rev A. And of course, company policy, you might need to assign approvers. In this particular case, I can go ahead as an admin and directly release these components. Now, when I did that, I want to make sure that I now have a released part. I want to make sure that I'm actually using that everywhere that it's referenced. So let me go into this assembly. I'm going to go ahead and change to version and make sure I'm actually using the latest revision. And you'll now see in this left side, that swing arm is a released component. And I have peace of mind that I'm using the latest and greatest. So again, deep and wide product, but just wanted to give an introduction on parts, assemblies, drawings, a little bit on how the data management works, how you can collaborate, branch and merge, move in an agile way. There's a lot to it. I highly recommend a few different resources. One is the Learning Center. This is free and accessible to all users of Onshape. This is also has a ton of depth, fully searchable. Also includes our AI advisor for quick AI answers that's trained on our documentation. A lot of great training material in here. The other one is our support system. One of the biggest things we hear from our customers that they love about Onshape is how much of a collaboration and partnership they have with the Onshape team and our support. In this help menu, you can contact support right within here. You can add markups. And the beauty here is you can actually share with the support team. You don't need to create a pack and go and, oh, they can't reproduce it over there. The support team on this unified platform is going to be able to come in and help you right where your actual data lives, be able to see everything on the back end. Highly recommend trying this out. Anyone on the Discovery program has access to this as well. So with that, I will stop sharing and I will pass it back to you, Darren.
Perfect. Let me sorry, let me go back to my PowerPoint. A lot of great questions, so I'll try to do this very quickly. Sorry, I'm still not sharing, am I? Can you see my window, Dan? There he is. Okay, little delay. I just wanted to point out, Dan showed you a very simple example, but look at some of the products that people are designing in Onshape. It may surprise you. There are planes flying, probably flying right now as we speak, that were fully designed in Onshape. The top assembly that I'm showing in the top left, you can't appreciate the scale from this simple image. That's a 37,000 component. The products you love, like Trek bicycles or maybe Formlab printers, you may not have realized were designed in Onshape. And one of the things I also want to point out, here's a lot more. Very popular in advanced robotics, heavy equipment like the farming equipment you see in the top center, as well as Custom Truck One. They are the leaders in the boom cranes that you see on massive vehicles on the highway. So just incredible amounts of products and incredible complexities are designed in Onshape. I want you to appreciate that, because I know Dan's example was rather simple, but it's just the beginning. You can really take this thing and push its limits and build some really exciting large assemblies and large equipment. One of the things that I think is lost on a lot of people, or they don't consider as they're looking at new tools, is the customer satisfaction. And we constantly run surveys. So another thing that I want you to take away from this webinar is that not only are people moving to the cloud, but when they do move to the cloud, they actually love the experience. We believe we are the highest rated and have the most satisfied customer base. In our surveys, we come out multiples ahead in what we call NPS scores. That's basically a score that says, would you recommend the product? Is it meeting your needs? Here you can see the cloud native Onshape is at 59, hybrid cloud somewhere around 11, desktop is somewhere around a 3. And this is really multiplied when we talk about PDM. PDM is something that a lot of people aren't really thrilled with. A lot of times it requires a full-time employee to manage sort of document management. With Onshape, it's built in, it's seamless, it's part of your workflows. We're the only vendor that comes out, in our surveys at least, with a positive score as far as PDM. If you're not familiar, if you haven't used Onshape yet, we have a great offer for you. If you're a qualified professional, meaning you're using CAD at work, you have the ability to sign up for our Onshape professional plan for up to 6 months. That's available on our website. And the second thing I just want to point out is it's not only the software access, but the learning center as well, as Dan mentioned. There's over 40 different courses that are free. Someone did mention that they were asking, what is the learning curve? If you have experience with, say, a SolidWorks or a traditional CAD system, I think it's less than a week. You'll just have to know where the different tools are. As Dan showed you, some of our tools are much more efficient. They have capabilities. For example, we don't have a different extrude cut command, but we have an AI advisor that can help you along the way, as well as a contextual search that can actually help guide you. Just key in the feature you're looking for from your previous CAD system, and it should direct you to the Onshape CAD system. So I think it's a matter of days, not a matter of weeks or months, to get you proficient in our software. At least that's the feedback that we get. That is my last slide. So I'm going to put the thank you. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing, and we can go to some of these great questions. There's quite a bit. So let me stop sharing, and I'll read one. One that I want to point out, somebody was asking about ITAR data or sensitive government data. We do have multiple plans. And we have what we call Onshape Government. It's our enterprise edition that's actually running in AWS GovCloud. So that will support any initiative that your company has with maintaining ITAR or EAR compliance. I encourage you, if you're dealing with sensitive data, go ahead and check that out. You can check it out on our website. There's a lot of questions about what file formats that we can read. I cut and paste our help document that actually shows you the import formats as well as the export formats, but all the ones that you're used to working with. If you're dealing with AutoCAD 2D data, you can bring that in. You can use that as a sketch to create 3D data. If you're migrating from a traditional file-based CAD, you can upload that geometry as well. We even have batch tools to help you do that. A lot of our customers do migrate sort of work in progress files quite a bit. A lot of times they'll keep legacy files on the older systems if they bought a perpetual license, but we interact with that geometry quite easily. We have great direct editing tools. Some of our batch import tools actually bring over metadata as well. So I think you'll find it quite useful and quite easy to do. The second thing I want to point out, and Dan, maybe you can comment on this. The question was, if we have standard components, are you able to link between documents and utilize that throughout your company, build once and utilize it in multiple places? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one, Onshape has a fully built-in standard content library, right? So you can manage sort of most common off-the-shelf bolts, nuts, screws, washers through that standard content library. There's some sort of auto magic, interesting insert things to utilize there. But we have a lot of companies that will this is where we utilize the permissions, right? You create a folder of standard components that's managed and editable by maybe one person, but accessible by the entire company. So they can go in and utilize that throughout, utilize things like our where used to be able to track down if you ever change it. Absolutely a lot of interesting things to do there.
There was a question as well about browser compatibility, Dan, and they were talking about, I mentioned Chrome, but this person is using Brave. Do you want to comment on our browser compatibility?
Yeah, I do believe we are accessible in Brave. I believe that is actually sort of based on
Chromium.
Chromium. Yeah, so I believe we're good there. But I mean, give it a shot. You know, I think they asked about specific features they wouldn't have. I think generally, if you can run Onshape in it, you're going to have the full access to the feature set.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that we didn't show today is our mobile apps. I just want to call out so everybody knows, if you want to run it on a phone and it's full capabilities, full editing, you can create geometry as well as edit geometry, or an iPad or an Android device. What you want to do is go to those app stores and actually download our app. So you don't want to try to run it within a browser on your phone. You want to actually use our app. It's been optimized for sort of the touch interface. But all the collaboration that Dan showed actually can work with somebody on a mobile device. You know, you can follow a person on the mobile device. You can see what they're working on. They can see what you're working on as well. So it's pretty exciting. And the mobile devices actually have some augmented reality capabilities where you can display your models right within the room that you're sitting in, as long as you have a camera feature.
Yeah.
There are a couple questions about merge conflicts. Do you want to comment on that, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to happen sometimes, right? The term I like to use is that Onshape very much fails gracefully, right? If you have a feature that references an edge that all of a sudden in the other part of the branch, that edge no longer exists, there's a chance that that feature has an error. But it's not going to blow things up. It's not going to crash. It's not going to be unrecoverable. I think that's the big thing here. When you merge, it's a line item that you can just undo before. The other thing is you have merge strategy options when you're in the merge dialog, where you can choose to only bring over certain parts of that branch, certain part studio, certain drawings where you made edits. If you don't want to conflict in other ones, you don't have to merge those.
Someone's asking, can you share recording in the link? We can actually, a link to the model that you use. Yeah, and that's one of the exciting things that I want to make sure everyone understands. Not only can we share with a named user, but we can actually share models with public, and we'll do that with the public, and we'll do that at the end, Dan. I think that's a great
Absolutely.
that's a great offer. So we'll post a link of where you can get that model as well. It's also great if let's say you do make standard components and you want people to incorporate those standard components into their designs, just go ahead and model an Onshape and make it public, and then you can share that link around. We even have the ability to share with people that don't have Onshape accounts. It's a view-only environment, but a good example is, let's say you're working on a robot and your parents are asking you how it's going. You can create a link and share it with them. They can click it right in a browser, see the model you're working on with no CAD experience and no account, and actually still look at your work. It's pretty exciting. We're getting asked about graphic card recommendations or hardware recommendations. Do you have any comments on that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, no real minimum requirements. One thing I do recommend, and I forget if someone put it in here, is the Onshape system check. Dedicated graphics card is going to get better performance, particularly if you're working on very, very large assemblies, but we don't need CAD specific ones. In fact, we find that oftentimes gaming cards, which are significantly cheaper, are even more performant, but no minimum. If you have a dedicated one, make sure you do the settings to utilize it. And check that, particularly if you're seeing performance issues.
Yeah. Someone's asking, can I create or design on top of a scan 3D model, STL, or similar? We call that mixed modeling, where you have a mesh model and you're actually doing parametric design, like a NURB design above that. And that's one of our huge strengths. A lot of companies that deal with, say, sculpted or building different shapes off of scan data utilize Onshape mainly for that. We can even add parametric features to scan data. So it's something we do. It's not something we'll cover in this webinar, but there are some videos out there about it. Just look at Onshape mesh data. I think you're going to see a lot of resources.
Someone asked about rendering capabilities. We do have photorealistic rendering in our Render Studio. That comes with all professional subscriptions. If you're in the Discovery program, you should have access. And we're always looking to improve that and get new ways for you to create renders as well.
Yeah. There was a question about, are we available globally? And the answer is yes. Now, we have select data centers that we're run from, so performance could vary in certain far reaches of the globe. But not only are we available everywhere on any device, but we're actually available in multiple languages. And someone said, can you actually collaborate with someone using a different language? And the answer, of course, is yes. However, I do want to point out, we localize the feature names. So if you are collaborating with someone, say, that's speaking Mandarin, you might see the feature names that they created in Mandarin and the feature names that you create in English, but you can rename all features, everything's customizable. So I'm sure you can come up with a strategy to work efficiently together. But the point is, we are global accessible. And the nice thing that I just hope it's not lost on anybody, everyone on the planet is using the same version of the Onshape software, the latest. And everyone on the planet that you give access to your design, they're all pointing on at the same data. So no longer are you playing telephone where somebody's changed the model and you have to get a copy of that back and incorporate the design. It is truly global collaboration with Onshape. I think that's our strength. Any other questions striking you, Dan, that we should cover?
It seems like you responded to a lot of these around like versions and revisions, and that's just sort of part of the learning curve here is some of the terminology in Onshape and how we approach data management.
Yeah. Someone is asking driving splines from equations. We do have that capability. A lot of the times, like let's say you're doing airfoil design, there are a lot of custom features that people have written. And a lot of these are shareable. Like it's a custom feature that you can actually invoke and share. And that's one that I know there's a lot of custom features out there to drive complex geometry from equations or different logic. How can AI help with drawing creation? So right now, let me talk about the state of AI with Onshape. In all of our plans, we have what's called the Onshape Advisor. This is a customized resource that has a natural language interface to it, and it's been trained on everything that we put out for Onshape. So it is an expert that can guide you through how to use the product. It's not looking at your data yet. The future, though, for us is working on agents that actually will do tasks, and you'll have to enable it to work with your data. Right now, our AI approach is not looking at your data, but we are feverishly working on that, and you'll see some really great capabilities coming out, within the next year.
One other quick comment there is the other thing we're doing is partnering with a lot of folks who are developing some really interesting things on AI automation, and so I'm actually talking to a lot of folks doing AI drawing capabilities, and we're talking about building some plugins to help our users.
Yeah. There was one other question I wanted to get to, and I'm trying to find it. There's so many questions here. Someone's asked, do we only run on AWS? And the answer is yes. We're all in with AWS. And we feel that that's a huge advantage because of the uptime and scalability of AWS's platform.
Did we touch on model-based definition? There's been a few.
That's the one I wanted to talk about. Yeah. So someone asked, when will we have model-based definition? And I will say that is an item on our roadmap. We actually have it at a state where select customers are testing it. So I think it's a matter of months that we will have full model-based definition. And why I'm so excited about it is, if you think about it, it'll be part of the interface. Again, everybody will be on the same version. It runs in a browser. And, once you add sort of the PMI to the model, it's whoever you share with will actually have access, and it's not a copy and won't require an additional application to be installed. So it really democratizes that model-based definition information, the PMI information. So we're really excited about it. We think we'll have a huge advantage in the marketplace. And as I said, hot roadmap item, matter of months. Stay tuned.
Do we talk about moving over from SolidWorks at all? There's maybe a few questions moving from other systems.
Mainly about file import, but if you want to add any color to that, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we do, and that's the beauty of working with our team is we're talking to folks moving over to Onshape from other systems all the time, and everyone takes a slightly different strategy, but know that you have a partner who's experienced and making you successful through it, whether it be just starting new projects in Onshape, whether it be moving things over sort of as needed, or doing a full sort of rip the Band-Aid off, get everything over. It really depends on how much you need to reutilize older components, kind of how your NPI looks. Is it more platform based or is it more net new, right? There's just too many variables to say there's a blanket approach, but know that our team is very, very good at supporting you through that process.
Yeah. There is some questions about running locally if you don't have an internet access. Unfortunately, it requires an internet access, but it does run really well on 5G. I did a demo yesterday with some 5G components on my phone. So if you don't have any online access, I think you're out of luck. You're going to have to get to a city, but otherwise, it works great with cellular connectivity. So I don't think you'll see. I think you'll find that you have access to Onshape more than you expect. There was another question about, sorry, I lost access. Expanding windows to multiple monitors. Yeah, your browser, like if you can extend the browser to multiple monitors, you can use Onshape. One thing that's really unique, because we're in multiple monitors, Dan showed a split screen where he had multiple users logged in, but you can actually run the same model in multiple tabs. So you can show a front view in one tab and a back view in another tab. So as you're working, you can actually see the model update in real time in all orientations that are of interest to you. It's really unique. If you get to use Onshape, do yourself a favor and duplicate the tab. Not only will you see what others would see if you collaborate with them, and you can play with like the follow modes and stuff, but actually you can watch your model in different orientations. It's really quite interesting. Someone asked, what happens if AWS goes down? Do you have backup servers so we don't lose access? Well, we actually have a status page that shows you the uptime of Onshape, and we generally have over 3 nines of uptime. 99.95 is a general year for us, which is the equivalent of maybe 4 hours of downtime per year. When you look at installing software or crashes that you have, or time waited to install a service pack, or even just challenges with your hardware as you're installing other applications, we believe our uptime is much higher than any traditional CAD-based system. So it's really a non-issue for us. I know AWS had some outages recently, but it didn't affect Onshape. We have redundant data centers, and it didn't affect us at all. We're coming up to the hour, so I think at this point we're going to thank everybody for joining us. If you have more questions, please reach out. By the way, if you'd like a sales rep or a CAD expert to talk to you about using Onshape at your company, please continue adding your name into the comments, and we'll make sure we follow up with you. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.